You guys must like each other. It's a lot of good conversations. I love that. I can't believe how blessed I am. I get to do this twice with two exceptional leaders, very different fields as well. And I was pinching myself actually thinking about how lucky this is. So when we had our prep, I was really impressed with your background. So if you will maybe start there and then how that contributes to what you do now.
So I started my career with the Detroit Pistons, and I spent 3 years in corporate partnership, helping them activate relationships with local brands and all of their properties. So the Pistons, the Palace of Auburn Hills at the time, as well as the other properties they managed at the time: DTE Energy Music Theater, Meadowbrook Music Festival, and Oakland University Athletics. So that was the gamut of traditional promotions, you name it, bringing those partnerships to life with the brands that wanted to affiliate themselves with the team. And, it was a lot of great traditional experience, but, that was the time of a social media, mobile, MarTech boom, and I wasn't really gaining that experience. So I jumped over and joined ePrize, which is now Merkle, and sort of immersed myself in how are brands using those kinds of products and solutions to reach consumers where they're spending time. After 3 years there working with brands in 27 different verticals, lastly dedicated to Coke and their brands, I joined the Detroit Lions in 2014 and was tasked with sort of aligning everything that they were doing in those spaces, those same digital, social, mobile, emerging tech spaces, with their corporate partners, and bringing that all together and creating streamlines and really a new revenue stream. So, after a year or so of doing that, transition to my current role, leading marketing, game entertainment, content, and a few other business units.
Love that. And the thing I was impressed is that you actually do oversee the full experience when it comes to the, the consumer, which is really valuable. And we'll talk about that. The big thing I was excited about with our conversation was how closely tied fandom is, and people who go to sports events and the gaming industry. Frankly, there's this authenticity, there's this fandom that is so core to those worlds. Can you speak a little bit about what the fan base means to you?
It means everything. I mean, the team came here in 1934. We approach the brand and everything we do with the fan at the center, but we are also realists about the team's performance and the history there. I mean, we wouldn't be able to do our jobs if we weren't. It is a proud generational fan base, loyal, and everything we do has them at the center, from evolving the experience to the product we're trying to put on the field. Everything we do, we're talking about how do we make this experience better? How do we bring the fans closer to the team? And on game day, it's really from the second that they leave their house until they pull back in their driveway if they're attending. And very similar approach to how we partner with the league on the broadcast for those who tune in at home.
I think it's really fascinating because your job doesn't solely rely on the outcome of the game.
Definitely not.
Yeah. And right. So I was thinking about how I would phrase that in the most polite way possible.
We're all friends here.
Okay, good. I did a decent job. But you literally oversee the entire experience, irregardless of the outcome of the game. And knowing that, what gaps do you see that you've either filled already and you're proud of in that experience, or you are thinking about filling in the future because you see opportunity to extend that experience or to make that experience more immersive?
Yeah. Well, it definitely takes a very large team and a team of great people that work on, various different aspects of this. But, I have worked on game experience since 2016, and there were a number of challenges, traffic being one of them. Boring, but the reality is, the team can win, it can be entertaining, and if it takes you 3 hours to get home to go 8 miles, it's not going to be that great, right?
I'm one of those angry people.
Right. So we've tried different things. We've integrated with Waze in our mobile app. We also, really put a focus on what's going on at the stadium from the second the gates open until kickoff. So, we have live music, all sorts of different activities, concession discounts, things like that, so that we encourage people and add value to the proposition of getting there early so that they don't have those issues. There's a number of other innovative things that we have done. We launched a mobile loyalty program in 2018 called Lions Perks, and it gives us the ability to directly deliver mobile dollars for the stadium to their app. So we can say, we can segment out and say, okay, these group of fans arrived here early. We're going to reward them for that. We're going to give them $10 to go spend on beer. We've now eliminated that traffic concern from their experience and then from the other.
That's so fascinating that you actually would think about traffic as a marketing opportunity.
Well, it's the whole game day experience, like you said. I mean, we think about the whole picture from driveway to driveway, and anything that's going to take away from the experience that we can control, we're going to try to impact in a positive way.
So that's something you already have thought about. Are there, future opportunities or gaps you're thinking about now to extend the experience?
Yeah, we focus a lot on second screen and the things that we do that complement how our fans consume the game, whether that's from home or when they're in the stadium. So fantasy sports has totally revolutionized sports and sports marketing, and frankly is genius. If you look at it from a league level, you have fans who 98% of the time have a team affinity. And then you invest them in the entire league, in every single game they're interested in because they participate in fantasy. So that's something that we know when our fans are in the building, they want to know fantasy stats. They want to know out of town scores. They want to know all of that. So we put a big emphasis on what we present on our ancillary digital board space within the stadium and then also within the app so that they can engage with the things that complement the viewing experience. So we put a lot of emphasis on that.
I love that. When we were talking before about the idea of fantasy and extending the experience, one of the things that came to my mind was the fact that you gamify the experience. And people love the idea of play, and interaction needs to go beyond just, engagement, but to gamify something means to engage them, to allow them to level up, to allow them to do other unique things while they're participating in the other experience. What other things have you gamified in the experience?
Yeah, just taking a step back there, I think that the root of that strategy is that, similar to how a more traditional brand might approach a marketing funnel and talking to that customer where they are at different places in the journey, we have that with levels of fandom. So is someone an avid fan? Are they a casual fan? Did their friend or their parent drag them to the game? We have to serve something to all of them that is going to hopefully move them along to where we want them, which is avid generational fandom that they're going to pass down to other, to their children or to family members or friends. So yes, we do some predictive gaming strategies within our app. So it gives, more of a casual fan the opportunity to say, who's going to win the coin toss? Who's going to have the first touchdown? Things that, an avid fan that's really tuned into the game probably isn't that interested in, but it adds a prizing opportunity and a way to have a little bit more invested, similar to the fantasy concept.
I absolutely love that. You gave that picture to me because I think you're very innovative as a brand in doing that. I think that there's a lot to be learned by this in-person event using digital as an extension in that particular way. Do you see, are you done? Or do you see other opportunities, whether you want to disclose them or not, to further engage? Is that a channel you're going to continue to push on?
I think so. There is, I think, a volume that you get to where you're serving as many experiences as your fans can find value in. But it's a space that's always evolving. So another thing, we've talked about is the place of virtual reality, mixed reality in a stadium, concepts that have been challenging for us as a team just because the throughput, when you bring in 65,000 people on Sundays and, you have a few headsets, it's difficult, to really see the return on that. So mixed reality is another thing within our app we're talking about.
I love that. That's also a challenge in the metaverse until we can have technology that can help concurrent people at the same time. It's going to be a bit. So we see traditional out-of-home advertising in the stadiums. We have for a really long time, and you're definitely an expert in this space. One of the things that we spoke about that I thought was interesting is, first of all, just a basic question for those that may not know: how is it sold? Who handles the sale of that advertising?
Yeah, we have a corporate partnership team that is constantly looking for brands both locally and nationally that have similar values to ours, and can see value in partnering with us in traditional ways and then also non-traditional ways. So they're identifying those partners, working with our existing partners, and presenting those opportunities, and any of that out of home is really part of a broader, more comprehensive partnership package.
Totally. One of the things we talked about with out of home that is specifically related to the business that we're in, intrinsic in-game advertising, putting ads inside of video games while they're playing. While the game is actively being played, the ad is simply there to make the environment more fun, more realistic. Similar in your environment. But I asked you the question, are there brands that might want to come into your stadium? You have to say, let's wait a minute.
Yes, it happens, and those will remain nameless. But we do take a pretty strict stance on which brands we allow to be present at Ford Field, and of course we want them to have similar values to ours. But it's beyond sort of that bigger picture stuff, and it also comes down to the brand governance and the consistency of the presentation. So we like our partners to use like colors when we can, and really present sort of a seamless co-branded presentation.
The other thing I loved that you said when I was learning about your business was you want to inspire them to make it about the day, about the game, if they can, if it's authentic to their brand. Do any of those kind of installations or ads resonate with you and come to mind as examples?
Yeah, I can give you a couple examples of partners that do it well, and that activate around their properties and partnerships in a way that's relevant to who they're trying to reach. And Rocket Mortgage is one of them. We talked a little bit about Super Bowl squares and what a great promotion that is, and sort of weaving Rocket Mortgage into the fabric of Super Bowl anticipation. Everybody does squares. They formalize it and make it a huge prize, and sort of build on something that is already a fan favorite. So that's I think a great creative example.
I love it. So here's a tricky question. Can you click on those ads in your stadium? Like, can you click? I think they're not clickable. I think they're just there in the background. It's not digital.
Right.
It's
No.
just there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I gotcha. That's a sales pitch, a subtle one.
But still people interact with the ads. It's amazing. They see it, and it's because you advise them on how to do it right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a tremendous impression value that some of those stadium signs deliver. NFL games are the most watched television programs annually by far. Last year I think more people watched a Sunday night football game than all of the NHL or Stanley Cup final games combined, which is a pretty tremendous value proposition for brand awareness, if that's what you need.
For sure. And one of the things we talked about related to that topic, and here's a couple of interesting facts. I think in 2022, 112 million people watched the Super Bowl, give or take, whatever the number is. There's actually 227 million gamers in the US actually who play 7.5 hours of games a week. So whether you're a fan going to a stadium because you're so passionate about that team, or whether you're a fan playing a game that you love, when you think about going into those mediums, what's the most important thing to think about from an advertiser perspective that you would advise people if they're coming into your environment or coming to a game? What do they have to think about when they approach that?
Well, I would say it goes back to the concept of putting your brand where the people you want to reach are spending their time. And if it is playing video games, it's gaming, then you want to be there. And I would say, candidly, I had some hesitancy. So 5 years ago, competitive gaming was booming, and it was the esports world, and, get in or you're missing out. I mean, I had hesitancy because as a club and as a league, we support programs like NFL Play 60, which is encouraging kids to get 60 minutes of active play a day. And I, kind of challenged some of my colleagues and said, can we stand for both? Can we stand for sitting and gaming, or and also, exercise and nutrition? Is there a conflict there? And do we want that brand contradiction? And then, as we were presented with more research, we realized that we create fans in a lot of different ways. Whether it is a child enrolling in flag football, we know that participation is a big feeder of fandom. Whether it's flag football, tackle football, but also, playing Madden. And, from there I became a little bit more open to it, as a means of driving that. But I think, that's what I would say is that you have to understand that all of those various different touch points are important, to building the brand.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing you spoke about is, just there's a lot of miscommunication or misunderstanding about what measurement looks like in these worlds. And I certainly can help you with that later. You were tasked with aligning the digital, social, and mobile platforms for the Lions, which is a big deal because it's a pretty big brand and you don't want to mess it up. Like, you don't want to do it wrong. When you were doing that work, what were the key learnings? What do you think you did right? What maybe some things that you maybe didn't do right, but you learned from and adjusted?
Yeah, it was 8 years ago now. And I think the biggest challenge was, like I said, we have a corporate partnership sales team. We also have a full content team. And I was tasked with sort of bridging the gap. The sponsorship team thought, if we're going to put out a piece of content on social media, video content, the bigger the logo, the better. The content team is like, we want none of that. So trying to kind of help them meet in the middle and understand that, the bigger the logo is, the less people are going to engage with it. And that's not good for either party. So, so I think that was like the big picture challenge that we faced. It was a lot of education as well, because this was, like I said, several years ago, and kind of teaching our local partners what the opportunities were. I mean, low hanging fruit, like establishing new rate cards, analyzing metrics where our analytics capabilities then were more limited. So really putting those things in place. How are we going to measure this? What are fans going to respond to? And then really bringing the partners on board to show them the value where maybe it was kind of not what they would have thought going into it, or thought would be effective, and then proving that value.
I think that's a valuable lesson to look back on, though, even though it was a bit ago, because things are changing so fast again. But you already spoke about some of the tests that you're doing, whether it's mixed reality, and you're thinking through that in terms of, how is infrastructure going to affect the experience? I didn't prep this question, but what are you most excited about in terms of that future forward innovation space?
I think it's all very exciting. We have 10 games a year. So unlike other sports, professional baseball, hockey, basketball, 40 plus home games a year, we have 10 opportunities to deliver the best experience for our fans. So talking about the likes of using voice in suites, so voice ordering, or AI to provide, customer service on game day to, again, 65,000 people. Some of those things are very exciting that we're talking about. And, all adds to hopefully an improved product on the field to round it out.
Love that. So there's a lot of young professionals here, and some might argue that you have one of the most sought after jobs in the industry because of the Lions and professional sports. What advice would you give people?
I would say I talk to a lot of young people who see sports as a very glamorous profession, and I would say it may appear that way, but it definitely is not that way. It requires a lot of passion, a lot of sacrifice. I've spent the last 7 Thanksgivings at Ford Field, and there's no place I would rather be. So unless that is kind of the way that you feel about it, and you have that level of commitment and dedication, it's challenging, but it is also very fun and very rewarding. And that's because you I shepherd a brand that's been around a very long time, but that people care about, and that's a double-edged sword for sure, because when you put work out and, you can comb through 1,000 comments on social media that are not so kind always. But at the end of the day, people care, and that's really a huge privilege. So my advice would be, if you're interested in it, if you're interested in sports, do things that show that. If you're a college student or a young professional, volunteer if that's what it takes, so that when you say, to potential hirer, hey, I have a passion for this. This is what I want to do. You can point to action that you've taken that shows that, and then be prepared for, what comes along with it, the good and the bad.
Well, even though you said that it's challenging and not always glamorous, it looks amazingly easy, and the experience is fantastic. So we all appreciate you, all of the Lions fans, whether you're watching the game or you're going to the game. It looks pretty great. So I want to open it up for questions as well. Oh, we have a few. We'll start here and we'll go back there.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I should have touched on that when we talked about streamlining, what I was originally tasked with. That was part of the initial approach, was just the same content for everybody, the same content on every platform, the same length, all of that. Not the way to do it. So we have really segmented out our mobile app experience to 3 different ways. People that are in the stadium, that we can geofence and know that they're at Ford Field or in the vicinity. People that are at home and are using the app as a secondary, complement to the broadcast. And then also non-game day. So similar. And we aim to serve things up very differently. So we know that if they're at home, something that they are clicking on all the time is the roster. We know that they're, who's that? So we lay things out according to that. We also serve up highlights and content, and also replays, so that they can go back and, look at a replay of a play. So we do that all very strategically based on analysis of who is engaging with what content pieces and from where. And we evolve that based on what we learn. A lot. We focus on the categories of sponsorship that are open now, but are always trying to kind of see around the corner to what's next, so that we are not, caught on our heels. And I think sports betting has been a tremendous change in that landscape, and we have multiple partners in that space, as do the rest of the clubs, and of course the league. We are really subject to what the NFL determines. And they put a lot of parameters around those kind of highly governed categories. I would say cannabis and CBD is another one that I think we all kind of wonder, when is that coming, and will they ever relax the rules for clubs in that? So we spend a lot of time on it, and want to be prepared to adjust. But to really answer your question, we're really subject to what the NFL decides there. Yes, we have. Over the summer, we built a brand new retail store that's 2 times the size of the last store we had, 6,000 square feet. And when we were designing it, we put the merchandise for women right at the entrance. And we got a lot of feedback that, you don't have a great selection, but more importantly, that was a really small effort to serve them. We also have a Women of the Pride fan club, where we do periodic events to bring women together to talk about, their fandom, and do dedicated events for them. We bring in football executives and players to kind of meet with them separately. And we're also, in the spring, we announced a girls flag football league. So that's something that's going to be a big priority for us over the next year, trying to kind of get that off the ground in the state, and be sure that, we're not only champions for flag and tackle football for boys, but also, to bring girls into the sport. And we know participation is a great way to do that. Yeah, that's a great question. It was a conversation over a number of years. So, there are some parameters around which teams are eligible for that program. You have to have not been to the playoffs in the previous 2 seasons, and you cannot have a first-year head coach. So over the last 6 years or so, there have been a couple times where we have been in that candidate pool. And, I remember when it was, I remember sitting around a table of about 20 people, and it was like, that would be the worst thing to ever happen if we got that. Just hard no. And, I'll I'll digress into a little anecdote here. But, I remember kind of sitting there and, kind of nodding along with everyone and thinking in my head, like, this is crazy. This is a huge opportunity. And, the Lions, because of the struggles on the field, have not gotten a lot of national attention. And when we have, it's been somewhat negative. And I remember kind of bolstering up some courage and kind of sitting up straight and saying, you know what, I disagree. I think we should throw our hat in the ring. I think this is something we should really do. And that was under a previous GM and previous head coach. And I remember people really didn't look at me for like 2 or 3 days. It's a true story. I was like, okay, I'm excommunicated. I'm out because I think we should have hard knocks. But yes, it was very much a conversation. I was in the camp for a long time of this is an opportunity. Every challenge is an opportunity. We should take advantage of this. If we do it, let's lean into it. Let's make the most of it. And over some time, people came around, I think, to that idea. And we said, let's do it. And our current GM and head coach were very open to the idea. NFL Films and HBO have an incredible operation, very smooth, very professional. We started talking to them last spring, really, about what are the storylines we want to elevate, what are the narratives, what do we want, what message do we want you to share about our team. But yeah, a lot of conversation and opinion 180 over a couple of years.
Frankly, it's authentic to your brand, though, in a way, right? Is you're out there. Everything's out there. So why not just, go there?
Yeah, and you have to be prepared for that. They installed like 50 some robotic cameras in every room in the building. Definitely an adjustment. Something that, we were very excited about because I think now, our football executives and players are accustomed to having that content captured. And so we're trying to kind of sneak in and say, well, now you've had a camera in the team meeting room. So can we just put one in there all the time? And, you're used to it now.
Oh, okay. I guess we're
at time.
All right. I could keep going forever.
I know.
Awesome.
She's wonderful. Everyone, thank you so much to Emily and Cary.